Hi, my name is Kelvin Newman and welcome to the Brighton SEO podcast, where we share talks from one of the world's most popular search and marketing conferences. The event started out as a few people meeting in an upstairs room of a pub and is now attended by over 3,000 people from all over the world. This episode is a recording of one of the speakers at a recent event.
We've got someone who I'm a good friend of as well as a huge fan of his work. He usually moderates, but I'm very glad we're able to get him to speak today. So we can have a big round of applause for the living legend, Mr. Jon Myers.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kelvin. Good afternoon, everybody. I like the comment, you usually moderate. He's let me loose on the big stage. What's going on? So it's been a long day, guys. I'm the last guy between you and, obviously, Gary from Google. So I'm kind of Gary's warm-up act. I want to talk to you about many things, effectively. I want to talk to you in the next 20 minutes around things like log files, links, everything, and some scenarios around basically everything that pertains to actually ingesting this type of data into your crawl reports. So I'm going to whip through these. I'm going to cover these areas. I'm going to let you think about some of these scenarios. I'm going to give you some practical tips. And then I'm going to let you think about some scenarios in this scenario. So I want to tell you a story. And this is actually a real image. I couldn't believe it. We went and found this on the web. And actually, there's some medieval dude that looks like Yoda out there today. And obviously, we all like a little bit of Star Wars. So you might get a theme as we start to go through this, this talk and this process. I want to tell you a story about a URL. That's one URL. So I'd like you to meet Mr. Deepson. He's something that we have at Deep Crawl, who we kick around a little bit. We talk about it. We print T-shirts with him on and all that sort of thing. Because obviously, everybody, when you're a web crawler, thinks about SEO and thinks about spiders and stuff like that. So we have our own one. So he's going to help us out today, and he's going to walk through this. So this is a story about one URL. And as I go through this, as I say, think about it in that context. And think about it in the context of taking data, and we'll come on to talk about backlinks, and actually ingesting that data into crawl to enrich what you can actually do from a web crawling perspective. So in the scenario of backlinks, there are a few things that you should consider. Backlink authority distribution. It's easy for you to go out and crawl a site and take, something like a Deep Crawl or a Screaming Frog or others in the marketplace and crawl the internal linkage of a site and understand where things are right and where things are wrong. Actually think about where your actually backlinks are then flowing into those pages. Are they flowing to quality pages? Are they landing on good pages? Are they landing on bad pages? Are they positive or negative backlinks? Because in a lot of respects, there's a lot of things we kind of treat and think about high authority backlinks. Actually, we think over time, the organic growth of the other side of the fence as well. And ultimately, where do they land? Do they land on high pages? Do they land on orphan pages? Pages with no links out into the site? So there's a lot of things to consider around backlinks. And as I say, I want to give you guys a few examples of those sorts of scenarios. What we tend to see, if this sort of thing happens, we start talking backlinks, whiteboards come out, everything starts drawing, everybody kind of just does that. I absolutely say, just don't do it. No. It's kind of a lot of scenario where you're spending a lot of time kind of just trying to mull over things, theorize over things. And as SEOs, we do like to do that. But the idea is to get into the data, understand the data, and let the data drive what you're seeing. Simple scenario. You've got Majestic out there, obviously great product, takes a lot of backlink data, allows you to take and see where those data flow into your site, what those links are that flow onto that page. Obviously, lets you understand where that page sits as well. So obviously in this scenario, it's not great because this page has been disallowed. It's not actually indexing Google. You've got maybe 1,000 high quality backlinks. So actually there's a bit of cleanup work to do there. So obviously marrying the backlink side of things with the crawl opportunities, you can actually start to play with. That's pretty simple. Another sort of scenario, again, if you've got a good quality backlinks throwing into a page, think about it from a point of view of where that page level actually is. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing a page with high quality inbound linkage that's basically sitting on level 42 within the site. You might wonder why that's an issue. So a great example would be Amazon, AWS from Amazon. I mean, talking to one of my devs the other day, he said there's a certain basically API data that they actually need from Amazon that's on AWS's website that actually you can't find. You basically have to go to Google actually type in the documents that you need in order to make those types of the server crawls. And effectively, it's the only way to find it, because actually within the site, you can't go on the site and find it for love nor money. So actually having incredibly good stuff and incredibly good quality backlinks flowing at the page, that's low down. There's probably a little bit of cleanup work to do there. You might want to raise the authority of those links onto higher level pages. But again, just highlighting using crawl data, the ability to start thinking about ingestion of backlink data better into the site. So thinking about a little bit more complicated scenario. 2 pages, backlinks flowing into each page. And effectively thinking about it in the context of their duplicate pages. So obviously you need to do the work again to clean up the backlinks, move the actual canonical through into one of the main pages, which means you can obviously get those 1,300 links all flowing into one page rather than just disparate splits and duplicate content issues. So say these are kind of examples to think, and you guys are kind of, well, these are, it's stuff, it's best practice. I'm just talking about one URL ultimately. I mentioned it earlier on because it's a big passion of mine. Negativity as well as positivity. You will have a ton of actual just organic backlinks out there. If you've been working on large formats for a few years and obviously get a lot of mentions out there, a lot of links build up, not all links are good links, and obviously there's a need to kind of go through a process sometimes to actually clean this up. So we always think about in the process of when we run a crawl report and looking at the backlinks and where they flow onto pages, actually you look at the good ones and you think, actually I can use these backlinks in a different way. I can move these backlinks further into the site to better pages, to pages that index better, as we were talking about before, but there is definitely a job to do on the other side of the fence. And having that ability to highlight the pages that this data lands on is incredibly powerful and important. So backlinks, there's so much stuff that you can actually play with. Log files is just something that's been around for an incredibly long time. What I love to find the fact is that we're seeing more and more people talking about log files on a more prevalent basis. I mean, I absolutely love log files. I can't see any of you, it's all very dark, but how many people love log files? There's hands out there. I literally can't see anybody at the back. I could spend an hour talking about log files. We could literally go line after line, bullet point after bullet point, many different things, all about server codes, all that sort of scenario. Bullet point after bullet point, but I don't like bullet points, as Greg Gifford says. Bullet points kill kittens. You'd all zone out. I kind of move on from there. But let's just think about it in a couple of contexts. Obviously, a log file, if you went back many years and did SEO, back in the early 2000s, your log file was kind of something which you really put to use. And it kind of disappeared a little bit when things like GA came in and obviously Webmaster Tools and stuff like that. But it's still an incredibly powerful thing that allows you to understand what Google's doing. If I was to give you a difference between the quality that, something outside of deep crawl as a web crawler can do, actually adding log file data to it, it really is understanding what Googlebot is doing. So obviously you can think about things like evaluating crawl budget wastage ultimately. So you can see in this scenario, there's a load of requests going into non-indexable pages or broken pages or pages that just aren't actually going to be in Google's index. So actually thinking and finding those pages and actually seeing that Google has an interest in those pages and you've actually got some issues with those pages when you do your crawl report, you can really start to do some really actionable cleanup on that side of things as well. Finding out the bits of the site which is crawled the most, I mean, that's incredibly key in a lot of respects to really understand how Google sees your site. You'd be amazed at some of the pages that Google visits more than any other pages. I mean, you take into account, obviously, on here, we've got the Contact Us page. Gets an incredible amount of visits. So actually, can you actually use that to actually enrich that page a little bit? Because obviously, all probably internal linkage links to a Contact Us page on the website. So you tend to find that that would be the scenario in that case. But there's real opportunity to understand how Google perceives your site and what interests Google on your site. So when you're a retailer or a publisher or a news type site, there's an incredible amount of change that occurs through that site, and Google's kind of waiting for that. If you're kind of not in that sort of sector, you kind of need to let Google be trained a little bit in what it needs to understand. So there's some work to do around maybe the robot.txt file and actually making and expressing pages to Google to make them understand better what's going on. Google Search Console, as I say, when you think about it from one URL point of view, obviously Google Search Console came out, everybody's kind of raved about it, got involved with it, it's a great product. We're integrating it to deep crawl and enriching the data into the crawls that you see. But for me, it's as simple as some scenarios like this. Effectively, you see, obviously, traffic within GSC, you see it flowing into a page, but then that page might actually be a disallowed page. It might be a 404 page. So actually, the traffic is flowing in there. Google's seeing the traffic into that page. But ultimately, actually, there's a load of work to be done on just sorting that page out and making that page more prevalent in that position. Let's think about some other things. So poor experience pages. Again, lots of traffic into the page URL, but actually what you've got there is you've got a product that is just permanently discontinued. It's sat there on the page. We can see that within the crawl report and actually understand that actually we've got this great page which is getting a load of traffic. There's nothing on it to buy. The product is dead. You can clean that up again. You can re-engineer it to another product. You can maybe do a redirection piece on it. This again is a great one, and it's something which I love watching, is image search. Everybody kind of uses image search to build decks. I'm sure that everybody that's talked today has used Google image search to find images to stick in their decks. Actually, there's an incredible amount of business gets done from image search. I mean, I can't mention any names, but I can think of a retailer that does 10% of its sales from Google image search. Because when you're actually looking to buy something like a sofa, you actually go to Google Image and you search for a sofa. You find a nice picture of a sofa, you click on that picture of that sofa, you go to that website, the price is right, you buy it. So actually, Google image search is becoming a great ROI driver. So if you guys are working in retail or different areas like that, I truly, honestly make sure all of your images are in place. There's no broken links into those images because if that image isn't in Google image search, so say I can certainly give you one retailer, maybe not outstood up here like right now, but 10% of their sales comes from Google image search. That's huge. It's absolutely massive, and it's quite a big retailer. So thinking about Google Analytics, GA, we all love it. It's a great product. It's been around for many years now. It's easy to implement. It's there for all. You guys can basically get involved in it and work through and understand more and more about actually, obviously, what's going on from that side of things. As I say, we used log files before this. GA is very, very good for us to understand what the consumer is doing. So when I think about it, it's bringing that traffic and adding that traffic into the equation. You know, it's one thing, obviously, being incredibly good in Google's eyes, but you really need to understand the consumer power. So finding out things like what are your customers converting on, because it's amazing to have a well SEO'd page, have a page that ranks really well in Google, indexes incredibly well, gives out all of the right beacons from a point of view of best practice around SEO on Google. If it isn't converting on that page, and there's no traffic going to that page, you really need to understand that. And that's where GA can really start to add that mix to your knowledge of what's going on. Say a simple scenario again. Effectively, Google Analytics, 1,000 visits, page is disallowed. Obviously, you might say, well, how do you get visits on a page that's disallowed? But at the end of the day, people find that page within your website. But if that's a page that's within your website that gets a lot of visits and gets a lot of conversion, we need to get that page in Google, and we need to understand what's going on. Crawl reports will help you highlight all of these pages, obviously. As I said at the start, the context of this is taking this data and marrying it with crawl data, which is very easy, as I say, on a one URL level. Let's get a little bit more fun with it and a little bit more complicated in some respects. So if we go from the bottom up, my URL, got a nice majestic 1,000 backlinks coming into the page. We're doing a 301 on a migration redirect into this page here. We had a 301 migration redirect into the ultimate page here, which all of the visits come into. If this breaks and this page is disallowed in this process, this page will not index and this page will have no backlinks. So all of the goodness and the quality that's been flowing in here for years, and maybe because somebody's messed up the migration piece, as soon as you get the disallow area in here, all of this becomes redundant. So again, just taking crawl reports data to highlight the fact of what's going on here, but then realizing externally you've got some amazing backlink quality coming in onto an old page, and you've got some great traffic coming into the new page, but that new page is nowhere to be found in Google. So some cleanup work again by using crawl data, marrying it with GA and various things. For me, it's kind of like Google drives awareness, but ultimately people drive ROI. We always talk about Google driving ROI. Google doesn't sell the stuff for you. Having that ability to basically put the person on the page in the right place at speed, obviously using all the tools that we have as SEOs to pull those levers, the people will drive that ROI. So these sorts of things are things that actually, when you start looking at more and more in these sorts of types of scenarios and stories, you really, really can start to understand things that you can fix and fix quick. So I spoke about 4 things. Let's think about when you start thinking about those 4 factors and pulling those 4 factors into one place. It can start to get a bit fun. You can start having a bit of a laugh with it. These are all things that I just see because obviously at Deep Crawl we do an incredible amount of crawling of pages, and we start to see these things, and it's amazing what our customers start to see from a point of view of these things that you can fix and fix fast. So in this scenario, basically, we know that people will go to Google and type red dress. Everybody's looking for red dress. So basically, they go to a page, they get given a page with effectively a result that returns a page, but they canonicalize the page to the dresses page. On the dresses page, everything looks great. So obviously we've got GA data coming in, we've got visits, we've got great backlinks, we've got log file analysis going through there from the Google bots, we've got the clicks in Google Search Console. But actually, we just kind of screwed up the consumer experience because basically they're looking for a red dress and they're just delivered to a page which basically has got everything on it. So actually, you need to rethink that one and basically get it to the point where actually you get the goodness into these multiple pages. Because when you're a retailer, it's important to understand exactly what is going on from a point of view of breaking down that and using Google to drive that for you. I'd mentioned migrations earlier on, but again, this is just another scenario when you start to think about bringing this whole piece together. So as we can see on here, again, we're working on a migration piece. We're seeing an incredible amount of traffic flowing into, obviously this was the original page. We want to redirect on the migration into this page. We can see great quality backlinks flowing through into the old page. It's still getting picked up, obviously, on the log file side of things. There's good visits in, obviously, and everything's working fine for the redirection through to the new site on the migration side of things. As soon as you miss that thing or somebody changes something, and you'll be amazed how many sites you see where basically you've got the redirect in place and you think everything's great, and then suddenly, so, you know, the devs in the room and all that sort of thing kind of screws up some of the page loads and stuff like that. You will get this scenario. You will get the scenario where that page breaks down. No visits ensue, 404 in play, and that can sit there for ages. So actually having the ability to highlight and be able to understand what's going on a day-by-day basis with the site. I mean, certainly, we, as I say, from a point of view of crawling, we see customers that basically will crawl maybe once a week or once a month, but then we see companies that are crawling every other hour because they're just going through this process. They're launching pages. They're actually putting new retailers might be putting a new dress line live. It could be a travel company put a whole new destination live kind of thing, but they actually want to make sure it's working right and working well. Because actually you're probably shooting yourself in the foot if you don't get it out there in the first place. This was all about one URL. Let's think about how you scale this up. How do we kind of, in this scenario, in this story, move on from one URL? Think about it as 100,000 URLs. I mean, I gave you some pretty simple examples of some stories, maybe some slightly more complicated ones, but I was thinking about one URL specifically as I was talking about that. Let's think about 100,000 URLs. Let's think about 1 million URLs. You know, sites are incredibly large these days. I mean, we talk on a regular basis to companies with 10 million pages in their sites. It's an incredible amount of stuff and onus on somebody to actually make sure as an SEO they maintain the full viability of that site structure. These sorts of things can happen then. Basically, Excel war ensues, files are downloaded, everything starts to flow through sheets, and obviously we know that that's limited in a lot of respects. We know that that actually is something which, for some people, works really, really well on smaller stuff. When you start dealing with big stuff, it's an incredibly onerous process to actually start running stuff in that way. You have to think about it from an automation point of view. You have to think how I can scale, how I can run this. So say one URL is easy. 100,000 is probably manageable. When you start to get into the millions, it really becomes quite a large issue to actually maintain and understand exactly what's going on a week-by-week, a day-by-day basis. It really does become about what we call your search universe. So, you know, I could talk about my search universe. You'll have a different search universe to me. It's really your world. Your environment will be completely different on every site that you guys work on, every company that you work for. Or if you're an in-house guy, obviously the day-to-day running of that actual product. So for me, it's about a correlation. It's about taking web crawling data and all of the technical SEO goodness that we get from a web crawler, and thinking about how we then ingest backlink authority into that, how we think about internal link authority, something which we call deep rank, obviously at our business. Log file data, Googlebot data, understanding what Google's doing on the website, performance data from Google Search Console. As I say, the latest product obviously is just getting better and better, and the data that you can gain from that product is unbelievable. And then obviously the power of the consumer, understanding what the people are doing and where they're buying from and how many sites they're seeing. And doing this at scale, effectively. So you've already seen a bit from us today. We've been obviously out there in the beer garden as a complete aside. Obviously, once Gary's finished and everybody can go in the bar and we can have a beer together. We've got 1,000 pints of beer out there, by the way. Anyone fancy the beer afterwards? Let's drink. And we need you guys to drink it, I'm honest. I know I'm going off on a tangent now in my last 2 minutes, but what you don't drink, we got to take home. So please, come and drink with us. we've basically built out a deep crawl now. We're giving you guys the ability to take our crawler and effectively ingest these data, these things that I'm talking about at scale into the product. So actually you get the goodness of the web crawl, but all of these external factors built into that. So we're going to give you the backlink data and actually allow you to suck backlink data. We're going to give you the crawl request data from log files and allow you to pull that in. The search analytics, and then ultimately the consumer piece as well. So we've been talking a little bit about that today. I think the nuance which I want to throw out there from this point of view on this one is we're giving you the ability not to just think about it from the context of one particular product. We've built some upload conduits into the backlinks and log file, which basically allows you to take any output from any provider in the backlink space. Obviously, I talked highly about Majestic today, or any log file analysis tool in the space, effectively, and drag and drop that data straight into deep crawl, which then means you can run that crawl and effectively have everything that you need to see in that. As I say, quirky nuances where you could take your Screaming Frog log file analyzer output and actually drag it into deep crawl and run crawl reports with it. So we've gone that far to give you guys the manipulation and the ability to do that. We truly believe that we are the only person or company out there today that can give that to you on a cloud-based crawler position. So it allows you guys to do this at scale. So I highly recommend, I'd love you guys to come and talk to us and check out what we've got to give. And ultimately, after my rambling story about one URL through to 1 million URLs and doing stuff at scale, that's all, folks. It's 10 minutes to Gary. As I say, please come and have a beer with us afterwards in the Deep Crawl Beer Garden. And we look forward to talking to you guys soon. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you, Jon.
This was originally recorded at a Brighton SEO conference. If you want to listen to more episodes or find out about the conference itself, you can do at brightonseo.com.